So so why do we need to separate target from the background, and how we do it? Or I better say how the imager does it. So main responsibilities of the imager are to automatically detect and separate targets, canopy, leaf, lesions, etc. from the background, and then extract surface temperature of the target. Available approaches, the main available approaches are, or like a known method is combining RGB imaging and methods like that rely on deep learning and machine learning, and this is apparently this is very popular. But the problem with this method is that it's computationally heavy, meaning that more powerful single board computers required. It's going to limit us in terms of what single board computer we can use. The algorithms that are developed this way are complex. It's labor intensive, time consuming to develop, and it needs a reference method for calibration anyway. And this is probably the most important limitation. And it's blind because it relies on RGB imaging. It's blind to early signs of nutrient deficiency, infestation, or diseases. Another known method in the literature, and a lot of people like this method also, is combining NDVI with NIR multispectral imaging. So whenever we have access to NIR multispectral imaging, then we can calculate NDVI and do a very similar thing. So this method is computationally light, and meaning that less powerful single board computers can be used for work here. It's easy to understand, or the algorithm is easy to understand. It can be easily tuned. It's not a black box. We know exactly what's happening. And most stable and accurate technique according to the literature, because it relies on near infrared channel. And we can easily compare different images at different time and conditions once radiometry images are radiometrically calibrated. And it's capable of detecting early signs of disorders, diseases, etc., because it relies on NIR imaging. But we need to have in mind that the type and quality of the NIR sensor is very, very critical here. So if we're not using a good sensor, this method is not going to be as useful. So at the end of the day, the algorithm segments NDVI image into background and foreground for the target, and then creates a mask for the thermal image layer. And this happens in real time. So this is just an example of the imager, doing the segmentation and separating the canopy from the background. So this is also the imager that I've installed in the lab just for testing and demonstration. It's looking at an immense plant, and you can see that it's again automatically separating the leaves from the background. Okay, I mentioned that the imager can calculate crop coefficient and crop ET. So how does it do it? Crop coefficient can be defined as a polynomial function of crop cover. And crop cover is automatically extracted, or can be automatically extracted from images by the algorithm. So if we have the correct model that relates canopy cover to the crop coefficient, we can calculate the crop coefficient and then use it to calculate crop evapotranspiration. So if you, we can calculate ETR or ETO, or reference ET, using the microclimate data that we have collected. And again, What I mean is that the imager is doing all the work for us. So another stage or another part of what the algorithm does on board the imager is analyzing the thermal images. The thermal layer can be just surface temperature, for example, canopy temperature, or CW sign, carbon stress index, transpiration, stomach conductance, or again, any type of model that we have embedded or are embedded in the system. Excuse me. So what it does is it calculates center, maximum, minimum, average values for the thermal layer. And depending on the settings, it does it in just an area of interest or only the target surface, because it's able to separate the target from the background and do all the statistical analysis just inside the target surface, or the shared areas between the two. So this allows us to automatically detect points of stress in the image by just pointing the imager at a target, at the plant canopy. And like other stages, stored raw images, raw data, and also or metadata, and also processed images are stored in the memory of the image. Okay, so this is a picture of the imager that I have installed it in the field. In the back, actually, it's the backyard garden, along with the microclimate unit. And it's capturing images at a specified time interval, and it generates values, numbers, and then they are stored in. Excuse me. And the results are stored on a CSV file. So let's get to the summary. So features of the all-in-one multimodal imaging system that I described. So it's hardware, it's low power, it's battery operated, and saying low power is relative, but because it can rely on batteries for several hours, we can say that. It's low cost, all the components are open source and everything is off the shelf, plus some components that are developed using a 3D printer and are built in the lab at a very low cost. And it relies on low-cost camera modules. I did not buy anything that was expensive to build the camera. And it's an all-in-one sensor. External microclimate unit. like the Atmos 41 can be connected to the sensor. We can also, embed a lot of those microclimate weather sensors into the system, and we don't necessarily have to actually use an external microclimate unit. And there were other sensors that were embedded into the system, into the system, like a light sensor, like a distance sensor, and a GPS receiver. And here, the imager is multimodal. It combines thermal and AR multispectral imaging to be able to do more. It's also wireless and IoT enabled, and these are actually features that the imager is inheriting from the single board computers that are used at its core. And the software of the multimodal imaging system, it comes with a graphical user interface. There are embedded image processing and computer vision algorithms. So everything is done, everything is carried out on the imager. And there are embedded crop models. So all different types of models that I had developed, since 2012, and I was using them in my research. I just embedded them in the crop model, so the imager could do the calculations and provide me with the results. And frequently needed operations are clearly automated here. So there wasn't much that I needed to do. And images and sensor data that are recorded are all geotagged and time-stamped. I'm really sorry. I don't know if you hear the noise, but there's a really bad noise going on in the background, and this keeps distracting me. I apologize for that. Okay, so this is an all-in-one field imager, or this is a design, more of a concept. I've done some work, but I have not completed this. So the portable, the imaging system that I've been describing so far, so it could be used, it can be used in the field, but it cannot be left in the field for extended period of time for continuous monitoring, because the package, the enclosure is not designed for that type of application. So I've been thinking about the type of system with all the capabilities, but for continuous field monitoring. And this is what I have in mind. So a system, an imager that is durable, with waterproof housing, and microclimate sensors are integrated into the system. Or the sensor, you don't need to have an external microclimate unit like the Atmos 41. It can read external sensors and here I'm talking about moisture sensors, soil moisture sensors, easy sensors. So more and more sensors can also be, added, and also more models and algorithms. So it can look at the real bigger picture here, and so it's not going to be just a sensor, but actually a powerful decision support tool. It can pull data from an API, application programming interface. So if there are certain data that you're collecting from sensors, and those sensors are connected to IoT enabled and are connected to the internet, connected to the cloud, this sensor can connect to to the cloud and then pull data, download the data, and again use it in some of those calculations. And it's also wireless and IoT enabled. And here by IoT enabled, I mean it could actually be part of a low power wide area network, so for example, it could be part of say a LoRaWAN, IoT network. that has a limited that you can transmit limited data, because the output of such a system is just values and numbers, and you don't have to send images over or transmit images over the network. And it also has a simple STI12 output if you wanted to use it in a wired mode. So let's do a comparison, a final comparison between commercial cameras and DIY all-in-one imagers that I described so far. So commercial imaging systems rely on expensive commercial cameras, and because of that, they're difficult to integrate. When you have cameras from different manufacturers with their own standards and outputs, you need to make yourself familiar with all that. And a lot of times they're not designed for integration, so that's another challenge. They usually have high power requirements. They're limited. Their application outdoors are limited. They're delicate. They're expensive yet delicate. So you cannot just leave them in the field. Someone might just steal them. They're difficult to integrate into systems. Some of them are specialized to do only one task. Again, this is related to what the fact that I said about their integration, because if they're designed to do just one thing, you may not be able to use them in a different application or in a different setting. Some only provide raw images, so you need to do additional processing. They may rely on cloud computing, or you have to take everything to the lab for processing using PC software, expensive PC software. And I would say with confidence that the majority of them, if not all, are not compatible with most wireless sensor networks and LPWAN IoT solutions. And on the other hand, we have DIY, all-in-one imagers. So if you develop your own system, so these are the benefits that you get from developing your own system. They rely on inexpensive camera modules or sensors, which is great. They're easy to integrate. If you are a developer, if you learn programming, if you learn how to use them, then you can do a lot with them. There's no limitation. They're affordable. Because you use off-the-shelf inexpensive components, then you end up with an affordable system. You can replicate. You can have and use a lot of units in your projects. They're power efficient and they're good for outdoors, provided that you design a good enclosure for them. And then also other benefits. There's also, they come with the benefit of embedded computer vision and crop models and algorithms, and you have control over everything, because some commercial imaging system might also come with some of these algorithms. But when you develop your own system, when you develop your own algorithms and embedded system, then you have control over every details. You can modify them to suit your application. They combine, and you can combine imaging. So in an all-in-one imagers, we combine imaging with other type of measurements, microclimate, distance, or even sound. Actually, so for example, if you're doing precision livestock management, if you do that, then you can collect all sorts of data on your animals. And if you combine them with, so if you're in love with, say, AI, deep learning, so then imagine what you can do with such a system. You can learn a lot about how your animals behave, or and then be able to manage them better. And and then these type of imagers are IoT edge enabled, and they can be easily integrated into LPWAN wireless sensor networks. That they require really low power, and also they output numbers and values and not images. So this would allow us to use them in wireless sensor networks very easily.